Hello, everyone. Greetings, friends. Good to see everyone. Thanks for joining ARRAY. And hello, everyone tuning in via live stream. My name is Mercedes Cooper. I'm the Senior Vice President of Public Programming, and you are attending our very first civics class. Okay. Now, if you're like me, and maybe you've seen films, I don't know, like 13th or Selma, or when they see us, I'm just, thinking off the top of my head. You might be thinking, what can I do? What should I do? Well, tonight we hope that we can give you some tools to prepare and guide you through these challenging and often confusing times. And when I say we, I do not mean me. We have put out a call to some extraordinary folks working every day to ensure we all receive just presents and futures that we deserve. And we're so thankful that they answered our call and answered swiftly because the topics that will be discussed tonight are quite urgent. With that being said, this is a community session. There's going to be a lot of material that is relayed to you, so bear with us. We will also be distributing that material after the event, so be sure to subscribe to ARRAY's YouTube channel at ARRAY Now to receive an alert once the recorded replay of this event goes live. And also, we hope that we will have a bit of time at the end of our rotation of presentations and discussions for some questions from our in-person audience. So if something comes up, write it down, text yourself, do what you gotta do, just save it here and we will try to get to you. Let's see, other housekeeping. I just really wanna thank the entire team at ARRAY for making this event happen. Jada, Pepito, Eric, Cedric, Lauren, Tammy, Tulane, Regina, our interns who are joining us tonight. Really thank you. It takes a lot of people to do this. But I also got to thank another vital member of ARRAY's team, and that would be our founder, Ava DuVernay, who lets us do all sorts of cool things here. Normally we're showing screens, film screenings, but today we are talking to you. So I would just like to call Ava DuVernay up.
Thank you, Mercedes. I have so much respect for everyone who's here. I mean, I came around, I'm coming from editing, and I walked in, I was shocked looking at you all from the back. I was like, people came. And it's important because this was an idea that started from our Senior Vice President of Public Programming, Mercedes Cooper, this wonderful woman who was just, give her a hand. And I really challenged her at the top of this year to think about, well, what can we do beyond showing films, showing and sharing films? I think there's nothing more powerful in expressing our dissent and our resistance and learning than watching movies and convening around movies. And I said, let's just get outside of our comfort zone and do some different things that don't involve movies. That makes us really scared to step outside the movie world. And so this was one of them, and the idea being, we're hearing so many things, we're learning so many things. I think I said, I wish there was a class. I wish there was somewhere I can go to convene with people who also cared about it, but also just to learn something, to hear lectures, to just, what do we do? And that's really what this was about. I only know two things to do. Learn, that's why I've got my student Sankofa sweatshirt on, and fight. That's why I got my camo on. And I think that those two really go hand in hand. That it is not just about protest or dissent online. It's about, what we put on our walls, the conversations we have with each other, the things that we allow and the things that we will not allow. And so preparing ourselves, knowing all the ground rules so that we can break them, is what this is all about. One of the organizations that I look to quite a bit, institutions that I look to quite a bit, because we feel like we're institution building here at ARRAY, is the ACLU. I just think they're badass. Like every time something happens, if you're on IG, they're like, yeah, we're gonna sue. You're like, wow, you're gonna sue the president like all day? And we're going to sue them, but just that powerful arm of the law to say these laws are made for us, they're here to serve us, we will use them in the ways that we want. And so it's an organization I have a lot of respect for, and under fire, taking heavy artillery and still coming out blasting back in really, really powerful ways. So there's a woman who heads a lot of the justice efforts based here in LA for the ACLU, who I've come to know a bit. So much so, and trust her so much, that I invited her to be one of the first people to see Origin and to give me notes back early on. I don't take notes easily. I only ask people I very much respect to give us notes. But she came, she sat in the theater, and she really watched and gave me some feedback. And so we asked her to come here and kind of lead the night. So let me tell you a little bit about Yasmin Cader. She's the Deputy Legal Director at the ACLU. Just badass right there. And she's the director of its Trone Center for Justice and Equality, which is a very specific space within the ACLU. So in her time as the director of that center, the center has driven groundbreaking litigation and advocacy efforts to transform the criminal legal system, including challenging criminalization of poverty, state violence, and racial injustice. So to put this moment in context, that's really what she's here for. And she's going to speak to you about what the ACLU is doing, but really what we can be doing. And then from there, we have a trio of speakers who will powerfully continue this kind of civics class. And again, this is the first time we've done it. You all are the inaugural class members, okay? Congratulations. Class of April 30th, 2014. And, but we want your feedback, you know, really on if this worked, what worked, and it's not criticism, it's just like, I like this part was a little shaky, so perhaps we can refine and do more, okay? So, without further ado, Yasmin Cader, come on up and lead us in our class. Thank you, sister.
Thank you. Well, hello, everybody. Am I right? Right now, we are in a pivotal moment in history. And the mic is on. Is that better? Okay, here we go. Right now, we really are in a pivotal moment of our history. There's no doubt about it. In the first 100 days of this administration, we have had an overwhelming onslaught of anti-constitutional actions from this administration. Attacks on our civil society, on our institutions, on our sectors, on our communities, on our people. And these attacks have come in so many forms. They're threatening to take down our universities, our law firms, our corporations, anyone who does not bend the knee. And they're attacking history, they're attacking ideas, free thought, anything that doesn't fit into their very narrow vision of who belongs and then who does not. So they're taking Maya Angelou off the shelves of the schools from the Department of Defense, and instead we have not one but 2 copies of Mein Kampf. Okay? That's what's happening. That's what we're facing. This is the moment that we're in. They're attacking the media. They're banning reporters. They're dismantling outlets. They're coming for networks. And this anti-diversity regime, because that's what they are, an anti-diversity, anti-inclusion, anti-opportunity, anti, everything that is true and just and real and American. That's who they are. They are tearing down scientific research, okay? They're coming for everyone. And so it isn't just, though, civil society. They're also attacking the civil rights infrastructure where in government, the people whose role it was to protect and stand up for Black people and other people of color and immigrants and women and the disabled and our LGBTQ plus communities, and forcing them, instead of standing up, to turn around and attack those communities. It is vicious, it is vindictive, it is a form of violence. Disappearing people to a foreign gulag, whisking away sick children who are citizens with no due process in the dead of night, likely forever. And so we just have to sit and take a moment and realize they are coming for the judges, for the scientists, for the doctors, for the teachers, for the students, for the engineers. They're coming for everyone, and the artists, trust and believe, the artists as well. So this can take your breath away. It has taken my breath away. It has brought me to my knees in moments. But then, let's take a moment and take a step back, and I remember, we have battled authoritarian strains in this country before, right? And can we start with slavery? Okay, so was there a greater denial of liberty, of freedom, of equality than slavery? No. But what do we know? We know history shows us that the enslaved, well, we liberated ourselves, right? Through our uprisings, through our escapes, and through the very first organized labor strike during the Civil War. Collective action on behalf of the enslaved people together organized to reduce cotton production, to bankrupt the Confederacy. And guess what? It worked, and we won. And that's not just the first, because let's talk about another authoritarian regime and strain that we have brought down. Jim Crow, a 100-year battle. And we lived through it, but we also kept our power through it. And we stood up to it. We created our own institutions in that time, our own newspapers, our own businesses, our own labor unions. And we protested. In that entire 100-year period, there were silent marches, children's marches, there were boycotts. There was a decades-long strategy in the courts to finally prove that separate was not equal. There were immeasurable sacrifices made along the way, and there was victory. But there's more. Because mass incarceration is another form of authoritarianism. We need to slow down for a moment and really think about it. Mass incarceration has operated like a preview for authoritarian rule. Strict control over people's bodies, over their movements, but also what you can say, what you can learn, what you can read, right? Who you can talk to, who can visit you, and who cannot. Erosion of community ties, that's another tool in the authoritarian playbook. Dehumanization, particularly of Black people and Black children, right? Another tool is the locking up of millions of people from all backgrounds, disappearing them from society. It's another form of disappearing, right? Eroding political rights, including the right to vote. This is all the markers. This is a recipe for authoritarian rule. But we have fought back. And can I have a moment with the storytellers in the room? And may I call out one in particular, Miss Duvernay, and how she led this effort with 13th, with When They See Us, with The Middle of Nowhere. These stories that show mass incarceration to be the authoritarianism tool that it is, right? I used to be a public defender for 25 years, and I will tell you, when 13th came out, what did we do, Summer? We fought, and what we did was we took that film and we would say to the prosecutors, can you please watch this? Can you watch this tonight before that sentencing tomorrow? And trust and believe it worked to change hearts and to change minds. This progress that we have made is real. There are less people in jails and prisons today than there were a decade ago. Now, we have a long way to go, but the world now knows that mass incarceration is truly a civil rights issue. Now, when we think about progress, one thing we know is it is not in a straight line. It is not linear. It is a zigzag. And right now, it's fair to say we're in a bit of a zag, right? And in a moment of retrenchment, but when we find ourselves there, we need inspiration and we need a roadmap. And where do we get that? Well, I think we have some lessons from our elders. And the one that I'm going to talk about is Frederick Douglass. I went to Howard University and I studied in Frederick Douglass Hall. And he is a hero of mine. As the leader of the Black abolition movement, he lived to see the destruction of slavery, but then afterwards a brief moment of true opportunity and freedom. And during that time of Reconstruction, we had political power, we had Black people in Congress and serving as mayors, we had a public education system that was growing for the entire country, we had economic opportunity, but that was short-lived. And it was followed by a period of violent retrenchment that was fueled by racial resentment. Does that sound familiar? Okay, so one thing that Frederick Douglass said was that I cannot shut my eyes to the ugly facts before me. And those ugly facts were lynchings and burning down of entire communities. We had the rise of the Klan, we had the birth of Jim Crow, apartheid, when that political violence became the law of the land. And during this time, there were some in the movement who pointed to the Constitution, and they said, this Constitution is an anti-democratic Constitution. It isn't here for us, even though it has these liberty and justice and equality principles. Are these concepts of any value here, or are they simply empty promises? But Douglass, who had been enslaved himself, remember, okay, he knew better than anyone else about the hypocrisy and the imperfection of that Constitution, but he said, stop, do not walk away. Do not walk away, because while there is this problems and this hypocrisy, there is genius in there too. And these are the principles for our liberation. So hold fast and true to principle, and that's what's going to get us through. So here at the ACLU, we listen to our elders, and we are seizing the power in the moment, and we are holding fast and true to that principle, and we are fighting back. So in the last 100 days, the ACLU has filed over 100 legal actions. Yes. So I'm just going to talk quickly about 3, okay? So let's start right here. That's my team. That's right. Those are my Avengers. That's my team. I'm so proud of them. And when the Trump administration attacked students' First Amendment rights to learn and teachers' First Amendment rights to teach, the teachers were fighting back. And guess what? We are fighting with them. On behalf of the NEA, the National Education Association, which is a union, it's a union of 3 million teachers. The ACLU is linking arms, that's us and them together, and taking the Trump administration to court. And we are doing it so the teachers can teach, the students can learn, and what can they learn? They can learn their own, our own, complicated American history. So schools can uphold basic human principles of diversity, of equity, and of inclusion. Now, just last week, that was last week, the federal court, they ruled in our favor. And we walked out of that courtroom. Thank you. We walked out of that courtroom with a preliminary ruling saying that it was likely, what the Department of Education was doing was likely an unconstitutional attack. That judge, she stopped them in their tracks. And that ruling is protecting teachers and those who employ teachers through kindergarten all the way through higher ed. Now, one of our plaintiffs, one of our clients is a middle school social studies teacher, right? And now she is free to teach her lesson plan. And her lesson plan was the Civil Rights Act of 1866, the ratification of the 14th and the 15th Amendments that protect all of us. She gets to talk about the Tulsa Race Massacre, okay? And she can do so without fear that she's going to be reported or that her school is going to somehow lose their funding. And there's more. If we go to the next slide. All right. You all remember this. Rumeysa Ozturk, the Fulbright scholar at Tufts. You all remember this, right? She was kidnapped by masked federal agents who were undercover surrounding her on the street when she was on the way to break fast with her friends for Ramadan. Well, why did they kidnap her and throw her in a detention center all the way in Louisiana? Because she wrote an op-ed in a student newspaper in support of Palestinian human rights? This was retaliation, plain and simple, where they were coming at her for exercising her First Amendment rights of expression. She is a person in this country, and she has those rights, just like I have those rights, just like you have those rights. And we are in court fighting for her, demanding her immediate release, along with the other academics who have been whisked away in the middle of the night simply because they dared to exercise their speech rights. But look, we're not the only ones who are fighting. Look at those crowds, okay? Look at the people in the street who have risen up in every corner of this country saying, not on our time and not on our watch, okay? Okay, I want to talk about these ladies here. Speaking of coming together, that's exactly what the League of Women Voters have done for over 100 years, fighting to protect the right to vote. So when President Trump issued his executive order trying to require a passport or citizenship papers just to register to vote, the ACLU and the League took action because this executive order threatened millions of voters. Together, we sued and we won, and the court blocked this unconstitutional requirement, made clear that the Trump administration overstepped its constitutional authority because only Congress and the states can make rules for federal elections. This is what we're calling separation of powers. That is not his role, that is not his job, and no executive order that he writes can bypass that process. So, that's right. So together, we can beat back these attacks on democracy. Authoritarianism is no match for the will of the people. Next slide.
On day one, the ACLU jumped into action to protect everyone's rights and freedoms from Donald Trump's agenda. The ACLU has already filed more than 100 legal actions against Trump's unconstitutional and dangerous policies.
We started out with a lawsuit within 2 hours of that executive order.
There is no way now to apply for asylum. That is patently unlawful.
We're suing President Trump over his executive orders attempting to ban gender-affirming medical care for transgender people under 19.
The Department of Education threatens schools what it called DEI practices, just labeling anything that they don't like as DEI and unlawful. Our lawsuit is challenging the threats that it imposed that it would start stripping federal funding.
The other two lawsuits we filed this week having to do with fast-track deportations. They can't just cut the corners around the statute.
Every day, the ACLU is in court defending people targeted by this administration. We're pushing our representatives in Congress to do their job.
We have turned out thousands to the Know Your Rights trainings, the town halls, the rallies.
And we're on the ground, making sure all of us know our rights and make our voices heard.
The First Amendment protects Mr. Khalil's right, all of our rights, to say what we believe.
This is not Trump's America. This is not Project 2025's America. This is our America.
We are the ACLU, and we're not going anywhere.
President Trump, we'll see you in court.
I want to say one last thing to our artists. You are the force multipliers. You are the drivers of our narratives. You are our catalyst for change, and you are uniquely poised to create the narrative and to raise the voices And I am confident that when we link arms together and we till the ground, we are going to be able to build the world we want to live in. So I want to say a special, special thank you to our artists tonight. And if you want, right there, we have a QR code, because what that will enable you to do is to join People Power with the ACLU and start to do that linking of arms. In addition, though, to that QR code and that opportunity, what I am so excited to do right now is for us to hear from our local organizations. Because one thing we know about politics is all politics are local politics, and all change comes from the ground up. So we are going to have right now our teachable moments part of tonight's events. And we're going to have 5 rotating sessions where we're going to be able to gain more information so we can know our rights, and then we are going to know how to take our rights and take action. And so each session is going to focus on a particular topic, and so please feel free to take notes and to record if that's easier, so that you can commit it to memory and you can absorb this information and put it in your personal toolkit, all right? All right, so I want to start with a fantastic local organization. I'm so excited they're here, Amigo LA, and they're going to start with a Know Your Rights workshop. Get ready, this is going to be fun. The Amigo aims to defend and provide equal opportunities for immigrants by creating bilingual resources and professional development programs for the immigrant community. So please welcome Maggie Bett from Amigo LA.
How is everyone doing today? Good. Well, my name is Maggie Bett Mendez, and I'm the founder and CEO of Amigo. So Amigo is a 501c3 nonprofit. I'm also undocumented and unafraid. I joined an early student movement that fought for what's known as Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program. We fought and we won. Today, thank you. Today, I do want to share that through Amigo, I was able to develop a free U.S. citizenship class program where we teach immigrants their civics test, a requirement by the U.S. government in order to become U.S. citizens. So we break the fear from taking this important steps. A lot of our families are really scared to go to these civics classes, but we make them feel welcomed. And so I welcome my team to the stage today so that they can present the Know Your Rights workshop for immigrant communities.
Con ganas, sin miedo. Sí podemos. Con ganas, sin miedo. Sí podemos.
Hello everyone. So that chant was brought to life by our U.S. citizenship class that Maggie just talked about. In these classes, which are free by the way, if anyone knows who might need some, we teach our students about civic engagement, and we help them learn for their civic exams, which are a requirement for becoming a citizen. So our chant translates to, with will and without fear, yes we can, it is possible. Right now our communities are feeling a lot, especially fear, and this is due to the tactics that ICE is using during their encounters. So our workshop today, we created an interactive presentation to help you learn about your rights and protect your communities.
Awesome, so before we get started, we'd like to introduce ourselves.
My name is Angelina Mariscal. I'm an attorney, and I'm here so you know your rights and you can let others know their rights.
My name is Yasmin Cader. I'm the daughter of immigrants, and I'm here today because I care about you knowing your rights.
My name is Gabby. I'm the daughter, sister, and friend of immigrants, and I'm here to let you guys know a couple of rights you might not know that you have.
Our presentation is titled Know Your Right, Know Your Power, and it's all about empowering our communities to learn about their rights so that they can take care of themselves, help their loved ones, and help everyone feel a little more prepared in an encounter with ICE. So here are 10 key Know Your Right points we'd like to talk about today. Firstly, always ask agents to identify themselves and the agency that they work for.
Yes, because it's possible that the ICE agents might misrepresent who they are. They might say they're police or probation officers. They might come in regular clothes. So you really don't know. So you do have the right to ask them, who are they? What agency are they with? Why are they there? What do they want? So don't be afraid to speak up and ask them, because you'll need to know these things later on if anything happens. So try to remember as much as possible when encountering any agents.
Absolutely, and it's important to remember not to give any false names or false information. Definitely not to claim U.S. citizenship. This can totally hurt you in the future.
Yes, again, don't claim to be a citizen if you're not, because it will affect your immigration case.
Remember that you always have the right to remain silent. You do not have to disclose your immigration status to any ICE officials or any other agents.
Yeah, it's important to practice that statement. I exercise my right to remain silent. It's funny you have to invoke a right to remain silent, but you have to say it. You have to say it, and you have to state it.
And it's essential to remember that you have the right not to consent to be searched. They can search you, but only with probable cause, and the attorney will explain what that is.
Yeah. Probable cause is evidence that a crime has been committed or is going to be committed. So you don't want to consent to a search. If authorities ask you if they can search your car, you say, I don't consent. Can I search you? No, I don't consent. Can I search your belongings? I don't consent. So it's very important. Can I come inside? No, you cannot. Just can I ask you a question? No, you cannot inside your house. So it's important not to give that consent.
Remember to always ask for a warrant and make sure that your name is on there and spelled correctly.
Yes, and especially in these instances with ICE, there are two types of warrants that can be given to you. One will be signed by a judge, and one will be signed by an immigration officer. So a warrant that's going to take you as a person needs to be signed by a judge. It has to have your information. And it's okay if they come and they say they have a warrant, you can look at that warrant to see if that's your information and if it's signed by a judge.
Right, and please invoke your right to silence. Don't give any personal information, especially your family's information. There's a possibility that they might, allow you the chance to go home, say bye to your kids, grab a couple of things. Please don't fall for this.
Right. Oftentimes, people are tricked to give more information than they're supposed to. So it's important just to stay quiet. Just stay silent until you talk to your attorney.
And remember to not take ICE to your house to pick up any identification or belongings.
Right. We've heard stories where they tell people, just sign here, we'll take you home, we'll get your stuff. You can go home to your family, say goodbye. That's not true. It's never going to happen. Police don't do that. Immigration officers don't do that. Don't fall for it. Don't sign anything unless there is an attorney present.
Absolutely. So don't sign anything. Ask to speak to a lawyer immediately. That should be the only thing that you should be telling them.
Okay. So if you're detained, you have access to a phone, you want to make sure that you give the A number. An A number is the alien number. We don't like to use that number, but that's the name that they use. So it's important that you give your family that number so that they could locate you and know exactly where you're at using that A number. If you don't have that A number, they could still locate you using your name, your birth date, and also your nationality.
But again, it's important to ask your family member the second you get them on the phone, what is your A number? Once you have that A number, you're going to be able to go to this website, and if anybody has a pen, I do recommend you write this down. That website is locator.ice.gov. Again, that's locator.ice.gov. And if you can, record the incident. If you see anybody recording, try to get their information, because you might want to give this to an organization or a news outlet eventually.
Again, when you're safe, take a moment to write everything down, because in that moment, you might have felt scared, you might have felt like frazzled, but when you have a moment to think about it, write everything down, because this can help you later to preserve your rights, to give to an attorney to see what rights, if any, have been violated. So also, if you can, you have your phone, that's a big weapon, everybody, so you could record, you don't want to interfere, you don't want to get into trouble, but do the best that you can, because you do have that right to record. So, with all that being said, and that was a lot of information, so we're going to put into practice what you learned. Okay, so the first thing. So let's say
nice, they're not nice. Let's say the opposite of nice. Let's say ICE is knocking at your door.
Can anyone here tell me what they would not do in that instance?
All right. Yeah, good job. You don't answer the door.
Great. So, what if they continue to insist that you need to open the door? What if they try to trick you, saying things like, we're here for a wellness check?
Can anyone tell me what they would do?
Call the real police. Right.
So there's
Why
something
should?
you should probably ask for if they're saying that they're here for you.
A warrant.
Beautiful.
Exactly. You want to ask for the warrant. Okay?
So what if they just don't care about that? What if they don't care about the warrant? What if they don't care about what you're asking them and they continue to pressure you?
What would you do in that instance, that they continue to pressure you?
Exactly.
There
You maintain firm on knowing your rights, okay, and exercising them. Never assume that a police officer or an immigration officer or any authority is gonna have you exercise their rights. They're your rights, so you have to invoke them. So together, as you know, we're stating this is a fight. We are in a fight, and we're gonna win this fight with knowledge. That's how we're gonna push through this. So everything that you learned here tonight, it's good if you go tell somebody. And then that's how the reaction starts. And that's how the fear starts to subside. So together we could do it.
So what if the worst happens? What if they still continue to push through your door? They're in your home, they detain you. What happens if they ask you to sign something? What are you gonna do then?
And unfortunately, it's true. People have said that when they are in this situation, they often feel really pressured to sign something. So what would you do in this instance?
Exactly. Do not sign anything. So I think you guys are attentive. I think you guys are really serious about why you're here tonight, and I think that's powerful. So once again, here, I'm gonna pass it to, we have a mic. We all have mics. Okay.
So remember that you have the right, the power, you have everything in your hands. You can invoke the right to silence. Please, ask about resources, help to protect your communities if you are a citizen. Everybody has a part to do.
We ask that you guys continue to support us and follow online for more information and to learn more ways how you can continue to contribute and help out your communities during this time.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Sounds like Mercedes can ask a question? Absolutely. I think I'm messing up things here. No. So could you just give a little information for those of us who may have a different status? Is it okay for someone to, can we film?
Yes.
What we see? Can we say anything? What can we say as citizens, quote unquote, to help? Is it best to just film and be quiet? Should we say something? Can we advise the person who's being detained on what to do? What can we do and not do?
That's a great question. You don't want to interfere, right? You don't want to put yourself in a position because if your liberty's taken, you're not going to be good to anybody. So you want to make sure you maintain a distance. But you could say, hey, call your attorney. Don't say anything. Shh. With reason, right? And then
we can speak to the person who.
You could just say, I would say just in general. Say in general. Don't say anything. That's what I would do. I know you're recording everybody, but.
Yeah. Okay. So we can film.
You can film.
I think it's important because sometimes they'll say you can't film me.
No, you can film. You can film.
You can speak.
You could speak, and you could even say, what's your name, what's your badge number? They have to identify themselves. If they're present, you could say, what's your supervisor's name, right? Everybody has somebody they have to answer to. Nobody is without somebody they answer to, especially in government. So that's the thing. You have to press. You have to hold firm, and you have to put yourself, not in a position where you're going to endanger yourself or other people, right? You don't want to do something like that.
Got it. And then the last thing I was wondering if you could just talk about, there's a term for it that the police can lie. It's a legal term. And so people say, oh, it's the police. They're not lying.
Oh, well, that's why we're saying.
So, but there's actually, what is it? There's a legal term that gives them the right to not just lie and not answer, but actually make up a story. Like they can say, I'm this when they're not. They can say. It's their investigative prerogative. Okay.
Right.
So they can tell you anything.
Real fancy.
There's no Bobby Brown, it's their prerogative.
Remember Bobby Brown.
It's their prerogative. But again, they can mislead, right? That's why they'll say, oh, they put you in separate rooms, and they'll say, oh, well, they already told us everything that happened over here. Now you got to tell your part. So there are things that are important. That's why you shouldn't talk in those. If you're being detained, then that's the first question you want to ask. Am I being detained? If they say yes, then that right away, you invoke your right to remain silent. I don't answer questions without my attorney. I need my attorney. If you're not being detained, then you just leave. So it's important to know when you're going to do it, right?
I actually have a couple of questions.
Okay.
First question is, let's say if we are observing, where do they get an attorney if they don't have an attorney?
Right? So you're going to say, call your attorney, but the first thing they're going to do is remain silent. Then they're going to have to go with, they're going to be taken away, and they've already invoked their right. So they will ask for their attorney then. So
Once they've gone already.
yeah, or they're being detained. I'm not going to talk, and you can say, I want my attorney at that time. And you just remain silent. And then they're going to take you, they're going to book you, and all of that process. The key is to what? To remain
silent.
Yeah, because you're like, oh man, nobody's talking, it's boring here, let me just add some information to this quiet, you feel the need, like you have to feel the silence. You don't.
There's
right?
power in the silence.
There's power in the silence, and I say it all the time that I think our jails would be less filled if people knew that, right? Because we don't know that. We start talking, we think we have to give a story, so.
And then my second question is, we've seen these images where people calling themselves ICE are actually busting the windows out of the cars and literally extracting people from their cars. There's glass everywhere, and then they just handcuff them.
Right.
I mean, what's going on there, and what's supposed to happen in that?
Well, there's some crimes going on there, so there's some kidnapping crimes. But for people that encounter those situations, it's very hard. So again, the people who I did see that they did hold fast to who are you? Or, we're not getting out. They had to physically, get them out of the car. So it's case by case. So it's important, again, just hold firm and under your rights. It's not your job to prove the immigration officer's case, right? Or the police officer's case.
Last question, I take Mercedes. I promise Mercedes. One last thing. Can you just because you are not a citizen of the United States in the formal sense, doesn't mean that you don't have rights.
Exactly. Well, right there, that's the secret, right? Because this Constitution is the law of the land, and it applies to everybody. So it behooves all of us to get that Constitution and cloak ourselves with it. Like a superpower. And that's what we want to tell people. It doesn't matter your citizenship. You're here, you're standing on this dirt, you're protected. But you have to know those rights. If you don't know them, you can't invoke them. So that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to get the word out to as many people as we can. There's millions of undocumented people that need to know this. And not only undocumented people, but documented people. So it's something we all need to learn. So this is the time.
Yeah, and we want to remind you that you guys do have the power to help out your communities. And we ask that even if this information, might not apply to you, we ask that you share with people who do need it.
Yeah, and just remember, an injustice to someone is an injustice to anyone.
Thank you so much for your time. We're going to go LA. Have a great night. Thank you.
Let's go.
Truer words never spoken, right? Injustice anywhere is a threat to injustice everywhere. So knowing our rights, cloaking ourselves in the Constitution, thank you so much for saying that. There's nothing that could be more true. And with that, I am so excited also now to take knowing our rights to another level in a different context with my colleague from the ACLU of Southern California. We have an entire affiliate structure across the country, and so while we have a national organization, we also have a local organization, and I have my colleague here, Summer Lacey. Let me just tell you a little bit about Summer. So Summer is the Criminal Justice and Police Practices Director at the ACLU of Southern California. She used to be the Senior Legal Counsel at the Justice Collaborative, but before that, Summer and I were colleagues and comrades as public defenders right down the street in federal court here in Los Angeles. We were champions of liberty together, rocking and rolling every day, right? That's right. So Summer, can you please come up and tell us about knowing your rights in the context of something I know every single one of us in here is going to do, has done, and is excited for the future to do, and that is to protest.
All right, good evening, everyone. How are you all? My name is Summer Lacey, and I am the Criminal Justice Director and Police Practices Director, as Yasmin said, for the ACLU of Southern California, and I am just so happy and honored to be able to be here and to be able to share space with you all tonight. So as Yasmin said, I'm here to talk about protesting. I'm here to talk about resistance, which are subjects that are front of mind for so many of us who feel like we are in the midst of an authoritarian renaissance. These times are difficult, they're disempowering, they're unpredictable, and they are overwhelming. And it is so easy to just want to turn away and not look at what's happening every day. But I just thank you all for being here, and not just for leaning into this moment, but for being in support of this greater movement. And this is a movement for true freedom and for real equality. So thank you again, and let's get started. So protesting, your rights, considerations, and the power of the arts. And before I really jump into this, I have to just start with a disclaimer that I'm not sharing information that's intended to be taken as legal advice. If you have specific legal questions, you need to meet with an attorney privately to go over that, to make sure that they're able to address your individual concerns. And also, I'm going to be talking about something that people have already been asking about, and that's what are your rights when interacting with law enforcement? And while it is important to hold on to those rights, to me, the most important outcome from an interaction with law enforcement is survival. So, yes, yeah, definitely, sorry, take a moment. Because I encourage you, even in listening to this, and when you take this out in the street with you, please prioritize your safety always. And finally, I'm gonna go over a whole lot of information. I hope this inaugural class of April 30th is ready. So I may not have time to answer questions, but that's fine. Find me afterwards. You'll have my information afterwards, and we can go over everything, any other questions that you might have. All right, next slide, please. So our agenda. We're going to talk about your rights when organizing a protest, your rights when attending a protest, your rights to film the police, which we're already asked about, your rights and considerations during police encounters, which we already started to talk about, and also just additional ways to engage in resistance and protest. So first of all, and we started talking about this already too, it's important to remember that the US Constitution guarantees everyone that lives in this country, regardless of their immigration status, a set of rights, including, for example, the right to the freedom of speech, the right to remain silent, the right to religious freedom, the right to retain legal counsel for criminal cases, and the right to free speech, which is guaranteed by the First Amendment, forms the foundational basis for our right to protest. And in addition to protecting the freedom of speech, the First Amendment protects the freedom of religion, the freedom of assembly, the freedom of the press, and the right to petition. So your rights, oh, thank you, sorry, next one. So your rights when organizing a protest. So first, your rights are strongest in traditional public forums. So those are your streets, sidewalks, and parks. But you also have freedom of speech rights to speak out in other forms of public property, so plazas or government buildings. You can protest, you can raise your voices in front of them, as long as you aren't blocking access or interfering with business. Know that private property owners can set rules for speech on their own property, but there are still some exceptions for large shopping centers. So if you're organizing a protest, you should know that it is possible for counter-protesters to come. So those are people who want to lift up their voices and protest in opposition to whatever you're protesting against. And those counter-protesters do have rights, and the police are obligated to keep the groups separated, but should allow them to be within sight and sound of each other. And you do have the right to photograph, to take pictures of anything that's in plain view, as long as you're lawfully present in any public space. Next slide. If you're organizing a protest, it's important to make the decision and to understand if you need to get a permit. So ordinarily, you do not need a permit to march on sidewalks if the marchers are not going to obstruct cars or any sort of pedestrian traffic. But the police can ask you to move to the side of the street or the sidewalk to let others pass by for safety reasons. Now, certain types of events might require a permit. So these include marches that require blocking traffic or street closure, large rallies where you're going to need amplification devices, or also rallies that are a certain size in parks or different plazas. Now, these permit procedures may require submitting an application well in advance of your event, so you have to know that, but the government cannot require a permit to prevent spontaneous protests that are objecting to recent events. And then also, permit procedures can vary by city to city, they can vary by county, they can vary depending upon the place that you want to hold your event. So it's always important to turn to your city or county websites for guidance on permit procedures. Next slide. Additionally, with permits, a permit cannot be denied just because the event that you're trying to organize may be controversial or because the protesters are going to express unpopular views. And if permit regulations that apply, if they require that you pay a fee, they must, or I guess I should say they should, I think they must, but they should allow a waiver for people who cannot pay. So always remember to ask for that if you are charged a fee. And even if you're organizing an event and there are some restrictions, don't worry, you still have rights. It's important to hold on to those because municipal or law enforcement restrictions on the route of a march or sound equipment might still violate the First Amendment if they are unnecessary for traffic control or public safety, or if they interfere significantly with effective communication to the intended audience. Next slide. Now, turning to your rights when you are attending a protest. So though we have very broad rights of freedom of speech, there still can be limits placed on that speech. So the First Amendment that we talked about protects your right to express your opinion. And as I said, even if it's unpopular, that is protected. You can criticize the president, Congress, you can criticize the police. But this right does not extend to libel or slander, obscenity, true threats, or speech that incites imminent violence or law-breaking. But also, you can't be held responsible or liable should people in attendance commit unlawful acts as long as your words don't directly incite violence or law-breaking. And you are also not liable for the reactions of counter-protesters to your messages. Next slide. Also, in terms of your rights if you're attending protests, there are limits that can be made on how loud you can be. Cities and other government entities can place limits on decibel levels when using amplified sound and can impose restrictions on the time and place you are speaking. But generally, always remember that you are allowed to use amplification devices, like a megaphone if you have one, to communicate your message, but just don't disturb the peace, because your focus is on communication, and if that's what it is, that is your right. Next slide. dispersal orders. Now, it could be the case that you attend a protest or demonstration, law enforcement shows up and they issue a dispersal order and they say everyone needs to leave or we're going to arrest you. Remember that the police may not break up a protest unless there is a clear and present danger of a riot, disorder, interference with traffic, or other immediate threat to public safety, or the protesters are engaged in some form of unlawful activity. And if officers do issue a dispersal order, they must provide a reasonable opportunity to comply, including sufficient time and a clear and unobstructed exit path so people can actually leave. And also, you have to receive clear and detailed notice of a dispersal order before anyone can be arrested or charged with any crime. And this includes how much time you have to disperse, the consequences of failing to disperse, and the clear exit path that you can follow so that you can actually leave. Next slide. Filming the police. If you're at a protest, if you're at a demonstration, or if you're even walking down the street, you never know if you're going to see an incident of police violence, of police abuse. And if that happens, know that you can stand at a safe distance away and if possible, use your phone to record video of what is happening. As long as you do not interfere, as what has already been said, as long as you do not interfere with what the officers are doing and do not stand close enough to obstruct their movements, then you have the right to observe and record events that are plainly visible in public spaces. But be aware, if you are doing this, that if the police have probable cause to arrest you for anything, they might just do it. Not because of whatever they say they have probable cause to arrest you for, but to stop you from filming. Also with filming police. Police officers may not confiscate or demand to view your photographs or video without a warrant. They may not delete your photographs or video under any circumstances. And if an officer orders you to stop recording or orders you to hand over your phone, you can tell that officer that you do not consent to doing so. And remind the officer that taking photographs, taking video, that is your right under the First Amendment, and that is a right that we all have. But again, be aware that some officers may arrest you for refusing to comply with their orders, even if their orders are illegal. So, interactions with law enforcement. Well, the Fourth and Fifth Amendments create the foundation for our rights when interacting with law enforcement. The Fourth Amendment protects people from being searched, stopped, or having their things taken away from them without reasonable suspicion or probable cause of criminal activity. And if the government or any law enforcement official wants to stop or search you, they gotta have a good reason for doing so. And to conduct a full search, they need to have permission. And that's permission from a judge. That could be permission from you if you consent. Or they could look at or say that their basis for searching you is exigent circumstances, like an emergency. But know that they also can perform a less intrusive search, so kind of like a pat-down sort of search, a stop and frisk search, if they say that they have reasonable suspicion that there is criminal activity going on. So the Fifth Amendment, this is where the guarantee of due process comes from, meaning that the state and the country have to respect your legal rights. And this includes the right against self-incrimination, so your right to remain silent. And moving to interactions with the police, or if you're ever approached by law enforcement, it's always important to remember these three phrases, and you've already started practicing them, so this is a really wonderful group. The first one, am I being detained or am I free to go? 2, I do not consent to searches. The third one, I am exercising my right to remain silent. I want to talk to an attorney. And I'm going to talk briefly about all three of these phrases. First one, am I being detained or am I free to go? You may ask this if you're first approached by police. And if the police say, yes, you're free to go, then you walk away. I suggest that you walk away though. Do not run away. You do not want to give them any reason to follow you. And once you start moving really fast, then they have a reason why they have some questions. So walk away calmly, but keep it away. If they try to get in your way after they say yes, you're free to go, and they keep asking you questions, then you ask them again, officer, am I being detained or am I free to go? If they say you are not free to go, or if a reasonable person would not feel free to end the encounter, so like if their guns are drawn, if they're blocking you from moving you, if they're touching you and stopping you, then you are being detained. And you can only be detained if an officer has a reasonable suspicion that you committed, that you are committing, or that you were about to commit a crime. Next slide. Next phrase, I do not consent to searches. We already talked a little bit about this too. So you may verbally refuse if an officer asks to search you or your property. But know that if you physically resist, you could be charged with assaulting an officer. So instead, just simply repeat that you do not consent to a search. But know too that your right to not consent may be limited if you are under any criminal legal system supervision. So your refusal to consent, that doesn't create reasonable suspicion, that doesn't create probable cause, and it cannot be used against you in court. But if you do consent, that means that in court, any search that happened is considered a legal search. So if you want to deny consent, you have to do it clearly, you have to do it irrefutably. Saying it loud enough so everyone can hear you, I do not consent to searches, because you never know. It's not about the police hearing you either. It's not just about the police hearing you, excuse me. It's about other people hearing you because you're gonna need witnesses. And so make sure that you say it out loud. Don't shake your head, don't nod, don't be equivocal at all. You are clear, I do not consent to this search. Last phrase, I am going to remain silent. I want to talk to an attorney. State this right if you are being detained or if the police ask you questions that you don't want to answer. And after you've invoked this right, remember, you must remain silent. You can say it, but then you can keep talking, and so it doesn't matter anymore. So many people do this. Once you say it, stop talking. And be clear when you invoke it. Don't say, I might want to not say anything. Maybe I should speak to an attorney. I'm not sure if I should. No. I'm going to remain silent. I want to talk to an attorney. That's it. And you don't have to wait for an officer to read you your Miranda rights. You don't have to wait for anything. You always have this right. You can invoke it at any time. And just remember that, I think there was a question about this, a request for a lawyer doesn't mean that the police are going to provide you with one. It means that the police will stop questioning you and give you an opportunity that's long enough for you to consult with a lawyer. So just going back to what I said at the beginning, we can't assume that officers will behave in a way that protects our safety. We can't assume that they will protect or respect our rights when we assert them. So no matter what's going on, knowing this is important, but you also have to take into consideration what is happening to you, what you feel comfortable doing, and make the best decision for yourself in that situation. All right, but if your rights are violated in a police encounter, what do? As soon as you can, write down everything that you remember happening. You write down the officer's name, their badge number, their patrol car number, the agency that they worked for. You get contact information from witnesses. Hopefully, maybe you aren't taken away. If you aren't arrested, that's wonderful. So then you say, did anyone see that? Get their contact information before they leave because you may need to contact them. You may need them to help you. Take photographs. Take photographs of any injuries. It doesn't say this up there, but I would take photographs of the entire area because you might need to explain what happened. You might need to explain the way the police blocked you or didn't allow you to leave, or the way they searched you, or if they pushed you up against a wall. Maybe you need to take a picture of that wall. So make sure you're taking pictures of everything. And once you have this information, you can file a written complaint with the agency's Internal Affairs Division or Civilian Complaint Board. You can also consider other legal action. And these are just some precautions to consider taking to protect yourself and others while protesting. So you can always arrange for legal support in advance. Invite legal observers to come to the protest. Invite them to be at the demonstration. You can make arrangements for legal representation if needed and carry that number of that attorney with you. I know people who would write the names of an attorney and their number on their arms before going to a protest. Wear clothes that you can easily move in, easily walk away in. Consider wearing protective eyewear. We know that there are situations where police will be shooting rubber bullets. And also protect yourself against surveillance. Password protect your devices. Evaluate the privacy and location tracking settings, especially on any social media that you have. And consider any potential harm connected to posting pictures of bystanders and their faces, because facial recognition software is being used in order to identify people who are at protests. Now, I know not everyone is in a position to be able to take to the streets, or what we learned today, take to the sidewalks, take to the plaza, and lift up their rights, assert in protest how they are resisting. So there are so many other ways that you can continue to resist, continue to protest. Some of these are following local initiatives, ordinances, and motions, and support or oppose county and city actions through public comment or active engagement in these public meetings, because they are open to you. They want to hear your voices, and as a representative of ACLU of Southern California, they need to hear your voices, and we need them to hear your voices. So please engage in this way. Also, reach out to your state and federal representatives. There are organizations that automate calls, that provide talking points, that help you engage in the state and federal legislative process. This next one is very near and dear to my heart, but when summoned, actively participate in the jury process. Being a juror is an act of resistance. It can be an act of protest. Being a voice to assert someone else's rights, especially people who are going through often very oppressive legal system, that is an act of resistance, and we need you there. And then allow yourself to be inspired, to create and develop artistic work and demonstrations that express resistance and the goals of the movement. Just have fun with it, because we know how hard everything is. And then, before I move to the next slide, actually, you might see on this slide there's a little flyer. So that is a flyer from a protest that I participated in during the pandemic, and it was a protest that honored the lives of community members who had been killed through state violence, and also people who are continuing to experience the harm of incarceration during the pandemic. And we placed roses on the steps of the Hall of Justice in Los Angeles to honor each life and to demand that each person's humanity be recognized. And the theme, A Rose from Concrete, and the iconography of placing the roses on the concrete steps was based on Tupac's famous poem, A Rose from Concrete. So there's just so much that you can do. Next slide. And then finally, I just had to end with a sentiment attributed to Tony Cade Bamabara, that art makes the movement irresistible. Just to emphasize the need and the place for artists like yourselves in the movement. We need your vision to help widen the sphere of resonance for this moment of resistance and for real change. So thank you so much for being here. Moving just quickly to the last slide, again with the thank you. I have the website for where you can find more information on your rights as a protester. And just as a final reminder that your rights are important, but your life is priceless. So at all times, prioritize your safety in everything, because we need you. Thanks.
Well, I feel empowered. Do you feel empowered? Yes. Right? Cloaked in that Constitution and empowered with our rights. So now we know our rights. We know how to organize. We know how to protect ourselves. And so now comes the mobilization. And so located mere steps away from where we are right now at ARRAY is the Filipino Workers Center, which is a nonprofit building collective power to demand better living and working conditions in order to secure the dignity, the safety, and the economic stability of our Filipino community here in Southern California. So here to lead us in mobilizing communities for engagement, please welcome PwC's Cultural Director, Malu Villacisneros, and our Communication Director, Hannah De Castro Abinuma. Thank you so much.
Good evening, everyone. How are you? Yeah, who was able to ride a jeepney this afternoon? Raise your hand. Yes. Woo! Yeah, the jeepney is just parked right across the street. So it's a jeepney. It's an an icon for the Philippine community. Okay, so let me introduce myself again. I'm Malu, and I have my colleague here.
I'm Hannah.
And we're from Filipino Workers Center. Yep.
How are you all doing tonight? You're still awake? You're still with
Yes.
us?
Who lives in San Fernando Valley? One. Oh, we have one. Who lives in San Diego? One. How about in LA? Woo! Well, those are the locations that we would like to welcome you, where the Filipino Workers Center has an office, so in San Diego and San Fernando Valley, Panorama City, and in LA. Okay, so today we'll talk about mobilizing communities for engagement, and maybe we'll briefly share what we do in PwC by sharing our strategic strategies.
Yes. So as they mentioned earlier, our office is just down the street. You're not gonna miss it. It's the building with yellow, blue, and red colors right across. So feel free to visit us or check us out after, not tonight because there's nobody there, but maybe tomorrow or the day after that. But we wanted to share with you our organization, things that we do for our community, and what it means to mobilize and engage our communities by talking about the things that matter to us as PwC. So first I wanted to ask, before we talk about our strategic priorities, who among you here believe that you have the power to evoke positive change in the community or around you, the people around you? Who? Yes, yes? There's so much power in this room, and I believe that we all have that power to evoke positive change within our communities, in our city, our nation. However, as individuals, it could be hard, right? Malu, it could be hard. But we believe at PwC that when we come together and build community, there's solidarity, power, right? And when we come together, we are able to build power, because our voices are stronger when we're together. Do you agree with that? I know you're artists, you're storytellers, and your stories are so much more powerful, and there's so much meaning when you use different platforms, or you actually come together to uplift the stories. And so I want to share with you briefly what it is that we care about. Number one is we build power through winning long-term care and home care policy organizing campaigns, and increasing the Filipino impact on the electorate through civic engagement, carried out by a vibrant, active membership base that can take action. What does this mean in so many words? Basically, we organize workers, right? Immigrant workers, the working class, and we collectively build the power so that we can actually, we believe in the power of protesting, but beyond protesting, there's also so much work that we need to do. We need to organize, we need to educate, and we need to bring our stories to legislators, for example, right? So that we could have more resources for our immigrant communities, for our workers. When we have that power, we build that power, we're able to bring our stories and our demands to the county, to the Board of Supervisors, to Sacramento, the legislators, and say, hey, we have millions of immigrants These are our needs. We needed to do something about it, and that is building power. We also build powerful community leadership. And how do we do that? Through our membership, by providing leadership development. We educate our workers so that they know what their rights are. Similar to what you just had, like a quick crash course in Know Your Rights earlier, right? Because most immigrant workers, when they come here, they're not aware of what their rights are, and that leads to exploitation at work. That leads to maltreatment, sometimes abuse, right? And so it's very important that we educate them, we build their leadership so that they in turn can empower other people to stand up for their rights. And we do that through our organizing, education, and outreach. And then I think Malu would like to talk about what services we provide to the community.
Okay, we strengthen the community through our services. So what services we offer? Immigration services, and we handle wage theft cases. We also have like, wage theft cases, and then we have the cooperative, we call it Courage. It's a cooperative of caregivers, and we also do workforce training, like conducting a series of trainings to prepare them for getting into a job or work. And then next is we also amplify and organize progressive Filipino forces. So we use culture, we use art, we use communication, civic engagement in amplifying the voices of the community. We gather the community, we conduct workshops, we conduct different coalition meetings, then we all partner as one. We try to get all voices, and so it will be stronger. Now for the programs and services.
All right, so we understand that using creative ways to educate people about their rights is important. That's what it means to amplify and organize progressive Filipino forces using culture and communications. We also want to talk about some of our programs and campaigns. Programs, campaigns, and services that we do. I know there's a lot, and we have limited time, so we're just going to talk about a few things. One advocacy campaign that is very near and dear to us as a worker center is workplace justice. Who here knows what workplace justice means? Not a lot. Okay, this is the perfect opportunity for me to talk about workplace justice. And so we organize workers, right? And we aim for an environment where people feel safe within their workplace, right? You can only be effective at your job if you feel safe. Also, that all workers are treated fairly. All workers have the right to a minimum wage. All workers have the right to overtime pay, regardless of their immigration status, right? But not all immigrant workers know this. And so, actually, we have encountered a lot of workers, mostly Filipino caregivers, who have been maltreated, who have been exploited by their employers because they did not know that they had rights. And some of them actually worked as caregivers for 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with being paid less than minimum wage, with no overtime pay, no meal or rest breaks. Some of them were getting paid as little as $2.50 an hour. Some of them getting paid as little as $5 an hour. And that's happening prevalently in our city, everywhere, because people don't know about their rights. And some employers are not being held accountable. And so what we do as a worker center is we educate the rights of we educate the workers about their rights. And we also work with lawyers and the Department of Labor to be able to file cases for them and to be able to win back those unpaid wages that they so rightfully deserve. And so what you see on the screen are actually workers who fought for and advocated for other fellow caregivers, and together we were able to help them and support them when we have filed more than 10 million wage claims and recovered more than 6.5 million in unpaid wages. Actually, last year, was it two years ago, we were able to win a critical case called the Adat Shalom. It was against the assisted living facility called Adat Shalom, and the workers were able to get a citation, able to get a victory, a victory of 8.5 million in unpaid wages. And that's because of organizing, of education, and
And then another service we have is Towards Freedom. It's an anti-human trafficking program or service. Who have heard of an anti-human trafficking? Oh, great. Yeah. So maybe I'll just share one one story, which Nanay Fidelina. In short, she's a 70 plus year old woman. She works more than 50 years doing, serving different employers in one family, 3 families, and she wasn't given any salary for the past 50 years. And then she was not given the right place to sleep. She was sleeping on the floor. Well, anyway, what happened was we were able to rescue her one time, and then we're able to win the case with the legal attorney and some law enforcement that was handling her. And then the good thing was after 60 years, we were able to liberate her and train her to be one of the speakers about knowing your rights and, you know, an advocate for anti-human trafficking. So that's one of our program, anti-human trafficking program for PwC. And right now, we have served more than 250 families, and we have reunited some here. And that was one of the intense, but you know, very fulfilling program that we did for the community.
And also, a very quick shameless plug. We also produced a documentary about anti-human trafficking and the work that we did, and we will share with you. If you want to look it up, it's Fidelina, and also Kept is the title. Also, Home of the Brave. All right?
Okay, and then we, besides that, of course, we have other legal services, which I think I don't need to mention. It will take a lot of our time, and we have to discuss many more interesting things for tonight. But another thing is we're using culture as a medium to organize, to engage, and to outreach to the community, which is very important. Thus, I know you had experience of riding the jeepney. Can I just hear some, how did you feel when you were in that jeepney? 14 people cramped on the
No
and the ride with the loud music. So, yeah, and anyone would share how you felt. Just one word. Fun. Yep. Anyone?
Let's say what it is. Can you just say, because we have some people watching, what's a jeepney?
Oh, a jeepney. Jeepney is a utility vehicle which was once used in the Philippines until now, and we took them here, and then we're using it for campaign. So,
can we go to the next one?
Yeah, there you go. But that's our original jeepney, which was made 1940. But the one that we brought here is the 1994. So that's 30 years old. This is 80 years old. So, but it's still moving. It's still, you can still ride on it and well maintained, but it's something very important for the Filipino community because you can see this all over the Philippines, and once you see it, they would just say, para. Para means stop, let me ride, and then once you're inside, it's opportunity to talk, to know each other. You don't even know, people you don't know, but there's this small space for you to talk and know each other.
Just to add, so the jeepney originally, the Philippines was under U.S., were colonized by the U.S., and after the war also they left their military jeeps in the Philippines, and Filipino ingenuity, the result of that is we turned those jeeps into public transportation. We painted them and we used them into public transportation, and so we were able to bring not one, but 2 of those jeepneys here and park on the building across, and we use it for different things through organizing, through educating people, and just bringing them to festivals, and a lot of other things you'll see later in the other slides.
And then, of course, besides the jeepney, every year we organize cultural festivals. One of the biggest is the ARRAY Day in October, and we do have workshops, trainings using basic integrated theater arts as a medium, theater, music, creative drama, visual arts, and creative writing as a medium for, self-expression and organizing and hearing the voices of the community.
And the Larry Leong Day Festival is an annual cultural festival that we hold here in historic Filipino town. We have performances, we bring out local business owners to showcase their services and their products. We are able to honor the legacy of Larry Leong. Larry Leong is a Filipino farm worker and labor rights leader, along with Cesar Chavez, Dolores Huerta, and Pete Velasco, and other farm workers. They led the Delano grape strike, which actually led to a large labor movement, which is a big thing for farm workers. And so we celebrate his legacy every year, and that's a way for us also to provide education to the community, mobilize them, educate them about their rights, and also celebrate the rich history of the Filipinos and the workers.
Yeah, and I think they're ready for the next video. Yeah, we prepared a short video on how we use the jeepney in mobilizing, organizing, and the program implementation in the community. So,
to bring him back to his roots, get him in a jeepney, him take us on his journey.
Where did you find this beautiful vintage?
Well, amazingly, we were doing a program, may youth program kami, PIDA Productions, and gusto namin gumawa ng tour ng historic Filipino town. Tapos, we dreamed na baka pwedeng may jeepney. So, but we couldn't find one until yung asawa ko, nakita niya itong jeepney sa eBay. It was brought over in the 1930s from the shuttle. And then for 30 years, nasa storage naman siya hanggang lumabas siya sa eBay. Pinili namin, we brought it down here. We also refurbished it at ngayon. It's a cultural icon sa historic Filipino town. So this jeepney tour is a fun cultural tour. This is a way that we can also make visible what are different issues that are happening so that we can make sure that all the issues that we have are also addressed. Because a lot of times they're hidden or in pockets behind closed doors. So this is a way to bring us all together in a fun, cultural way.
This one particularly, the Hi-Fi Jeepney, is a 1944 surround jeepney from the Philippines. It is one of the first versions of the jeepney. As you can see, it's a lot smaller than jeepneys that you find in the Philippines, a lot more compact, but in that way it is actually street legal in the United States.
This is the first time I saw this jeepney.
What do you think of it?
Oh, it's awesome. Nagulat because this is my first time to see this jeepney in LA.
Now it's time for a colorful urban adventure, food, and one hot ride.
You know we rolling like that Jeep now.
Chugging along through historic Filipino town in an authentic 1944 jeepney is an experience you won't forget. And that's the whole idea.
We take people to places that show the culture of the Philippines, to remember where we're from, and to not lose our essence.
We start in historic known as Hi-Fi for its rich mix of cultures, food, and it was recently named the 5th coolest neighborhood in the world by Time Out magazine. I got to explore the town in an authentically Filipino ride. You all have one of only 10 jeepneys in the United States, so it's very authentic.
This one is more authentic than some of the others.
So shall we?
Yes, let's go.
Okay.
This is the jeepney. We call it also the Jeep ng Bayan, and our theme really is driving Filipino empowerment so that as a whole our community can come together, have a stronger voice in voting and a stronger voice just by acting together so that we can address all of the issues that we have in our community.
Some 50,000 people took to the streets of downtown LA on May 1st. While Filipino immigrant rights activists were loud and proud in their GP during the May Day rallies.
We are not in favor of targeting the immigrants for deportation.
We as a community have to be ready to respond. Make sure that everyone has food, helping in terms of if they're running into problems with housing.
Bibigyan natin ang pagkain. Kamusta naman po?
Ito po, PPEs, we actually just did a bulk order so we can also get more.
For the community, okay?
And so visit us. There are volunteer opportunities for everybody. We need artists. We need people who will make signs. We need people who will document stories. Whatever it is that you think you can contribute, visit us right across the street.
Thank you. And for the artists, we need filmmakers, we need artists. We would want to have like a concert inside a jeepney or a concert room around town, each corner with artists. So yes, contact us and we can work together. Thank you so much.
We will build power together. Thank you so much.
Let me say before we continue that I don't know if everyone knows, but this is historic Filipino town where our campus is. So we just want to thank you because the Filipino community has welcomed us here. We thank you so much to the Filipino Workers Center. And I just thought they were an incredible example. They are an incredible example of community organizing. It's everything from culture to legal to voting to, and it's people who got together and said, we're going to do this for each other. So thank you for the example. I just want to make sure we salute where we are.
And I want to also say thank you so much for the example, as was said, but also just for the reminder of how rich our community is here in Los Angeles, how we have people from all over the world, how we really are the foundation of a true multicultural democracy. Because my progress is your progress, and your progress is our progress. So thank you for leading, right? And building that foundation for workers workers everywhere. So I'm just so grateful to you. And I'm also really grateful for our next speaker. And we're going to hear from Public Matters. It's an artist-led creative studio for community engagement. So especially for all the artists in here, where they create strategies that transform the culture, practice, and experience of civic participation in communities of color. Rihanna Estrada is the co-principal and creative director at Public Matters, and they have been awarded residencies from the Lucas Artist Residency Program at Villa Montalvo, from the Chivella Ranieri, and many other places. They are just an extraordinary organization. So let's give Rihanna a warm welcome as they share case studies and tips on leveraging culture for social impact.
Thank you. Hey everybody, how are we all doing? All right, so I'm a public artist. I'm gonna show you lots of pictures. And I'm kind of curious, like looking around the room, who here identifies as a creative or an artist? I wanna see my people here. Ooh, nice. Okay, very cool. Hold on a second, I'm gonna get my notes out. This is very exciting. I love it. I love being surrounded by my people. This is so awesome. Okay, so Public Matters is a creative studio for civic engagement. This photo was actually taken across the street in front of the Filipino Workers Center. This was part of a, it was for the Policy Link Conference in 2018. And basically what you have here is a Kamayan feast. So across the street, people from all over all over the country were eating Filipino food, a feast with their bare hands, on the sidewalk in historic Filipino town. So, I mean, you can't get more LA than that, right? It's very LA. One thing I do want to thank ARRAY for taking a risk, for going outside their comfort zone. And I think that's something that artists do really well. When people can be very kind of risk averse, artists go where people are uncomfortable. They go where it's a little bit unsafe. And I think I want to make sure that we're uplifting that. Okay. Next slide. Okay, so a couple of things you might want to know about Public Matters. Public Matters, our projects work with participants and partners from across the spectrum of scale. So we work with small groups, larger institutions, small businesses, universities, government officials. We will work with anybody. Like that shot with the table, that's what we're about. If people are interested in the conversation, in joining, we will try to make a seat at the table for them. So as a result, Public Matters tends to do its work and they situates it outside the arts. So it's specifically embedded in disciplines like public health or transportation or environmental justice. Because we believe that artists and the arts are integral to, not incidental, to all the parts of our lives, right? And that's kind of what, that's what we stand for. We believe in artists, okay? Next slide. And so I'm gonna go out on a limb here, and I'm gonna say that when it comes to exercising our civic engagement, Americans are probably a little out of shape, right? I mean, anybody you think it's a little out of shape? So I think today, I'm hoping that we can take this opportunity to see how we use the arts to flex our civic muscles. Did you like that? I don't really work out, but I feel appropriate. So today I'm going to share some case studies with you all. Lots of pictures, like I said. And we're going to look at how the arts can help to raise issue awareness, how the arts can build and show public support, and also how the arts can take direct action. All right, so I'm gonna, next slide please, and my magic imaginary clicker here. I'm really used to kind of clicking for myself, but thank you, Jada. So the first case study I'm going to share with you is a recent project called A Good Mischief Toolkit for Neighborhood Self-Determination. It's kind of long, Good Mischief for short. And this was something that we got funded through the California Arts Council's California Creative Corps through 18th Street Art Center in Santa Monica. Think of it kind of like a WPA, Works Progress Administration, for embedding artists working in community for community benefit. So for this project, we ended up collaborating with this local group called Vision City Terrace. These are neighbors who are all volunteer, who started basically with grassroots community cleanup. They didn't like what they saw, so they took action. Since that time, they evolved to address kind of more broadly the like environmental injustice in their community. Next slide. So this kind of represents the Whiteside area of City Terrace in East LA. City Terrace stinks, and its neighbors, its residents deserve better. So the way that it's set up, there's lots of, there's industrial manufacturing, there's kind of food production, energy drinks, trash companies that bring 700 tons of trash into the neighborhood every day. So you get what one of the residents, Felix, calls the odor salad. Why don't you sit with that for a second? What is a gross odor salad, right? And so that is what people are dealing with here, okay? Next slide. And so it's no surprise when you have the odor salad that in City Terrace, the cancer risk from air pollution is worse than 97% of Los Angeles, Riverside, Orange, and San Bernardino counties. That's bad, right? I'm not a mouth person, that's bad. Okay, next slide. So basically, a good mischief toolkit is a public art project. However, it's a public art project that's really intended to build the capacity of our community partner to be able to self-advocate on issues of environmental justice. This is something that artists can do. We can help in this way, right? And so what we ended up doing was kind of making ourselves kind of like informal artists in residence, embedded creative strategists, if you will, within Vision City Terrace, which is not a formal organization, right? But over the course of a year, we were able to do a lot of different, what we hope are impactful projects. Next slide. Okay. So basically, we use art, humor, provocation, and strategic activations to make it so that VCT can better inform and reach their neighbors. They can mobilize collective action. They can exert pressure. Exert pressure on their public agencies to act, and they can also and they can together manifest a shared vision for their neighborhood. Next slide. This is a goal. When Public Matters thinks about what civic participation means, it's all about making it less soul suck and more conspiratorial joy, right? Because really, we know it's a struggle, it's gonna be hard, but the process can't take all of your humanity, the stuff that's important, that makes you who you are. So in all Public Matters projects, we try to make sure that we're trying to find that humor, that joy that will keep us going. Okay, next slide. Full confession, I'm a little policy wonky sometimes, so I love things like statistics and data and maps. Anybody here love? Yes! Oh my God, I'm feeling so seen right now. This is amazing. So we created a story map with Vision City Terrace. Like, we co-create our projects with community members so that we're centering their stories. So the story map, for those who aren't so familiar with this lovely digital online resource, story maps confuse stories with data and maps to make complex information more digestible to a full range of people. So VCT can share the story map with their neighbor down the street. They can also share it with policy and planning people. We did a version in English and in Spanish because language justice is important. Next slide. So this is Felix, the man who named the odor salad. So Felix has lived in the neighborhood for decades. Despite the fact that the trash comes in 700 tons every day into his neighborhood, despite the smell of the Monster Energy drink company and the pollution from the 10 freeway, Felix chooses to stay because this is his home. And he loves the view from his morning coffee, like from his backyard. He loves it. So one day, Felix gets a knock on the door. A location scout comes to call in. Does that resonate with folks here? Location scout, yes, in the business, right? So they reach out to Felix and they want to see if he'd be interested in making his place available for a TV show. Fear of the Walking Dead. Right? So I'm like, on one hand, money, yay money, right? And on the other hand, there's this gut punch that the place that you love is somehow seen as fit for a pending zombie apocalypse, right? That stings. Felix took the money, right? He took the money and he basically planted it. So he took that money, those resources, and he used it to remediate soil, buy a ton of plants, irrigation, and basically created an oasis for himself that is the polar opposite of the zombie apocalypse. Right? And that's amazing and really inspiring, right? And so for us, you know, the story map was called, we framed it as a love story, storytellers in the house, right? We framed it as a love story because when we were making the content with our community partners, it was really important for them to avoid a deficit framework. And so they wanted to define the struggle as something that was defined by love. Love of their families, their neighbors, their community, right? Okay, next slide. So because this is a digital tool, it's a resource, we also wanted to connect what could be seen as a pending zombie apocalypse environmental landscape to what may have caused it. So we make clear the link between restrictive housing covenants and redlining to the environmental injustice, to the poor health outcomes that the folks in City Terrace experience today. Right? Next slide. We also did extensive documentation. Documentation's important. Extensive documentation of the toxic landscape. We created a toxic tour with them so that on the story map you can identify who the heavy polluters are, who the bad neighbors are in the area. And this content, again, available to neighbors, policymakers, and government folks alike, right? These are artists making this stuff, right? This is what's possible. Next slide. So, I mean, digital only gets you so far, and it's important to be able to take our conversations out into real space so people can interact with it. To talk with our bodies and to look at our environment in that way. So, Vision City Terrace, their vision includes a clean, green city terrace. So one of the ways we thought to maybe elevate this message was to kind of play with the idea of those little pine air fresheners. Y'all know what those are if you have them in the car. But this time they're not little, they're big. And they're not pine, they're climate resilient trees that were identified by the USC Urban Trees Initiative, with whom we also worked, right? So it's something that is actionable, right? So we have these kind of fake, these fake air fresheners, and we put them throughout the neighborhood in an unsanctioned fashion. We almost got arrested twice, but that's another story. So we have them all over. Here you see it at a shadeless bus stop by the 10 freeway. So you can think about how trees can help with air quality, provide shade, all of that stuff, right? Next slide. And so we made a bunch of them, enough to share the wealth and give them away. Because this is how you get messages out. You get people to spread the message to their networks. So people could adopt an arbolito, or several, and show their support for the greening of City Terrace and for Vision City Terrace. Next slide. So there also used to be a lot more trees. There used to be a lot more trees along City Terrace. But over time, when some of the trees died, sadly the county decided not to replant, and they kind of paved over with asphalt. So a missed opportunity in our moment of heat islands and environmental crisis, right? Missed opportunity. So we're like, okay, let's make some chalk drawings of shade that would have been there if there were trees. So we can mark those spaces and the absence. We also had people go around flyering lost trees so that we can identify that they're lost trees. And then we talked about rewards like cleaner air and shade, right? Like this is all accurate, this is all true, but delivered in a way that people can digest, right? Next slide. So we ended up doing, we love puns, let's plant a vision for City Terrace. So we ended up doing a large community event with multiple partners where regular community members could learn about urban reforestation. They could make seed bombs, things like that, things that they could do. Next slide. But I'll say that one of my favorite things, though, was how we were able to take those things that are invisible particles, like carbon monoxide, sulfur dioxide, PM2.5, and give them physical form in like piñata, pollution monster piñatas, right? So we made them physical so people could see it and interact with it with their bodies, and they whacked the heck out of them. We filled them with candy, like candy that was kind of smelly candy, with pollution, so it's kind of gross, which it is. But people really, they took to it. They threw their bodies into it. And at the time I watched people smack the piñatas, I was unexpectedly moved. I didn't realize I would feel the way that I did. Because in that moment, each of those people who took a whack at those piñatas were expressing a cathartic moment. All those years of pent-up struggle, of dealing with the asthma and the poor air quality. They killed those piñatas, right? And I bring that up just because as artists, there's a way that we can create space, not just for dialogue, but also for people's bodies to inhabit a shared experience together, to connect them to each other, right? Next slide. But, we don't always want to leave it gloom and doom. We like to have a hope, an out. So we wanted to move from just that sheer frustration to something that's more aspirational. So we held these workshops where we asked community members, what if City Terrace didn't stink? What would you like it to smell like? Next slide. So we worked with the Institute for Art and Olfaction to devise a custom scent so that, and turn them into our own air fresheners so that we could, VCT could distribute them to their neighbors and get the word out that way, and also spread the possibility of hope. Okay? All right. So I'm going to shift. I have a couple of short examples that will move us from kind of raising issue awareness, this idea of building and showing kind of public support, because that's what we need to do. That's how we mobilize, right? We show that people are behind something, or chickens are behind something. Next slide. So this is a project that we did. It was part of a contract with the Los Angeles County Department of Public Health Police Program, and it was for a pedestrian plan, which was to solicit community input to make the streets safer and more accessible for all. But people aren't exactly breaking down your door to be like, yes, pedestrian plan. Let me contribute. So we use adorable animals as a crutch. It's kind of a crutch, but we used it. And we made a petition to politicians. To help spread the information about traffic safety and the importance of our public infrastructure for our human and our animal companions. That got people were like, yeah, sign me up. Here's Fido, stamp, right? You can't see it here, but the scroll also has these giant dog bones. So you roll it out, it's kind of cool. Okay, next slide. So we also put ourselves in events. So we collaborated with the Queer Mercado to have a pet parade. Because who doesn't love a parade? Who doesn't love animals getting dressed up? And then while they're in that space, we get them to talk about the pedestrian plan. So slide. Okay, next slide. Right, so you get your pedestrian plan, and at some point it comes to the county board of supervisors because they have to approve this government. I'm curious, how many people here have ever been to a county supervisors meeting? Ooh, all right, nice. Okay, city council meeting. Ooh, this is so exciting. That's awesome. Because it's not really that fun. So kudos to you for taking one for the team, right? We all have to take one for the team because this is part of how government works, right? And so at the meeting, we brought our petition along with a lot of community members as a show of support. And while my colleague Mike Blockstein from Public Matters read official public comment, where he kind of read through the text of the petition to politicians, I and Hema, who is also with Public Matters, we were kind of dressed in outfits, and we silently, dramatically unfurled the long, long petition. I was worried that I was going to trip because I'm kind of clumsy, but I was able to make it through okay. And at some point, Supervisor Solis, who's actually my supervisor, jumps out of her seat and she comes in and takes a selfie with me. So she was very excited that that work happened in this way, because often a lot of people will say that it's a bit soul crushing, right, to go through those processes. It's hard for people. But this was a way where we were able to bring a different way of being with each other. And they approved it. Yay, pedestrian plan. It's available. And you can check it out. Next slide. Oh. So if I might test your patience, I'm going to share like one more thing. And this has to do with taking direct action, because direct action is really important. This work happened as part of University Park Slow Jams, which is a partnership with USC, USC Kid Watch, with the Saul Price School of Public Policy, and with pedestrian advocacy group Los Angeles Walk. So we came together to self-initiate University Park Slow Jams, safer and more accessible streets for all. Now, these sidewalks are probably not unfamiliar to you all. I mean, I don't know if anybody's tripped on LA sidewalks. They are horrible. 80% of them are like D or worse. And they have hurt people. And most people don't think about it until you trip over it, or unless you're an older person or somebody with a mobility impairment, or a parent pulling a stroller, right? Why do you have to struggle through this? This is our public infrastructure. And the city is on the hook because they were found in violation of the Americans with Disabilities Act. So they need to pay out so that they can fix this. And so we wanted to exert pressure on, on our agencies to act in our interests. So in the streets around Norwood Elementary School in University Park, next slide, we made these giant Band-Aids and had people go around marking all of the infrastructure ouchies so that you could see that the stuff needed fixing, right? But we didn't stop there. You see that handy dandy QR code? God, technology is amazing. People were able to click the QR code and connect directly with my LA 311, so people could document, report, and request repair. So direct action, putting pressure. Next slide, please. And there were a lot of them. There were like a ton. Like you saw the school and you're like, oh my God, this is awful. And really kind of great. And so I think, thank you for your patience. And I will say that in closing, I'd like to share a thought. And it's this, so anytime we're doing social change work, right? Imagination is a prerequisite. Because we need to be able to imagine something different than how things are. And artists and creative people can provide us a portal to that imagination, to connect us with what might be possible, and also with the spirit of possibility. And that can be really, really powerful. So thank you.
Well, I think one thing that we have learned through that extraordinary presentation is that creativity, that ingenuity, and that joy is also truly revolutionary, right? So thank you so much. I'm inspired. I want one of those Band-Aids. Terrible, terrible sidewalks in my neighborhood. So we have one more extraordinary speaker, and then we're going to have Q&A. But right now we're going to hear from Kimberly Gland, who is the Senior Manager of Cross-Sector Initiatives, whose core programs include cultural equity, inclusion, and access. And so we have here Kimberly with a very timely call to action for all of us. All right.
Hi, everybody. It's past my bedtime. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep it sweet and short because these amazing people over here, I mean, come on. Are you kidding me already? I've learned so much. And also, Rihanna and I are like doing the same work, except she is way funnier than me. I'm just gonna say it right now. Okay, so at the LA County Department of Arts and Culture, I am curious, actually, honestly, because there's a lot of artists and creatives in the room, how many of you have been funded by the Department of Arts and Culture, have worked with us in some way, know about us, know that we exist? Cool, 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 cool. Okay, great, so there's plenty of you who haven't heard about us. So we're your local arts agency for the county, which is real, real big. And as you heard, we have 5 county supervisors, and they actually do understand and believe in the arts, and they understand the power of the arts and the importance of the arts to have access to them in our lives. There is a thing called the Cultural Equity and Inclusion Initiative that was initiated in 2015. There was an advisory committee of people, such as yourself, who participated and came up with 13 recommendations, 5 of which were funded. One of those was the Creative Strategist Artist in Residence program, which is a lot of the same kind of projects that Rand was talking about. So imagining artists as creative strategists, as creative thinkers, as problem solvers, and inviting them to be embedded in government agencies to work alongside county government workers who are very engineers, very fact-based, very this is my job, to look at a problem, something that's not working, and to propose creative solutions to those problems. So we have this amazing program. I invite you to check it out, that QR code up there. And a lot of the work that I do is really thinking about how can we infuse the arts in non-arts spaces, which is why it's called cross-sector. That can look like a lot of different things. And all of it is undergirded by the countywide cultural policy, which is a law that was enacted by the Board of Supervisors in June of 2020 that asks the county and all of its departments to ensure meaningful access to arts and culture for all of its residents. So think about that for a second. Auditor controller, animal care and control, probation, all 37 departments have to really find ways to increase meaningful access to arts and culture for all of the residents of the County of Los Angeles. So that leads to a lot of really creative and innovative kinds of programs and projects, which you can find out about by going to our website, which I encourage you to do. If you are yourself an artist and you're interested in becoming more civically engaged in using your creative brain for different purposes, please sign up for our newsletter and you will find out about a lot of different interesting and creative projects and opportunities, professional development. We do a whole host of things. We provide grants for nonprofit arts organizations. We have a public art program. We have an arts education division. We do a lot of work. And I'm very grateful to the Board of Supervisors who really do believe in equity. We're not backing down. I know these are some interesting times that we find ourselves in. I'll just say that. However, the county has an anti-racism, diversity, and inclusion initiative. Yeah. And, yeah, and all of our work is led by cultural equity, inclusion, and access. So we're doing it. And then I just want to really briefly talk about this program. This is the reason why I was invited to come and speak to you all. Is because we're the local partner with a project called Artists at Work, which is similar. It's a work progress administration style program that hires and pays artists to be artists, to work in your studio or write your novel or whatever your art form is, to do that, and to partner with a nonprofit organization on a social impact project during that time period. So I invite you to check it out. We're in the process of selecting 4 artists for this current iteration of Artists at Work. The Los Angeles County Department of Arts and Culture. We're just a local partner. This isn't our program. This is the brilliant people at the Office Performing Arts Plus Film with funding from the Mellon Foundation. And all that to say that there's a lot of really interesting work out there. I know these are really scary, scary, scary times, truly, but don't give up hope. These amazing people have got your back, for real. And there's a lot of amazing opportunities and a lot of ways that we as artists and creatives can be catalysts for social change. And then I'm gonna stop because it's late. Okay.
Hopefully everyone walked away with what they needed to walk away from this night. Thank you online audiences for staying with us. We're gonna be having more programming at Array, so you can follow us at Array Now. You can check Array Play for what's coming up next. Follow all these organizations. As I mentioned at the top, we will be making this recorded video live. We will be embedding all the presentations and materials. And this is, a start to more conversations. And class is dismissed. Yeah, I like it. Thank you.